All right, the next one we're going to look at is interviews. And I'm very proud of Chad for this one. Chad's been on the job search for a little while now and got some exciting news yesterday. So we were chatting on WhatsApp last night. And interviews are always a very difficult thing. When you're going into the job market, you're trying to find the right fit, you're trying to find the right company, and you actually got to walk into a room and impress random strangers who don't know you from a bar of soap and try and form some sort of impression. And so, Chad, we've spoken a bit offline about interviewing, and I know you have some tips from your recent experience. Do you mind sharing some tips with us as to what you've learned in the last couple of days and the interviews you've been on?
Yeah, definitely. So, as you said, I was kind of in the fortunate position of having to choose between two offers yesterday, and literally have been interviewing for the last 2 weeks. Now, this is quite a contrast between when I first moved to London, and it actually took me 2 months to find work. Had gone for loads and loads of interviews, and I wasn't just getting any bites. So I definitely think in that time I've grown in terms of the interview skill, because interviewing is a skill that you can learn. And yeah, here are some of my tips. So the first point I wanted to make is just in terms of South Africans. Now, you mentioned earlier that you've kind of recognized you're lucky to be coming from a great country. Now, sometimes when you're there, you sort of, it's a third world country. Sometimes, we don't feel like we're not in the US, we're not in the UK. A lot of the things that we do aren't as visible to the rest of the world. And sometimes, we feel like we're kind of subpar. But I completely want to, scrap that narrative 100%, because we are incredibly capable and we have the potential to shine really on the world stage. So I want to drop that notion. So, firstly, after moving over here, that was kind of something that may have been at the back of my mind. And, in hindsight, we have really good quality education. We are incredibly competent, incredibly diligent people, and, people like us, and we are able to shine. So that's the first thing. The second thing is confidence. So basically, this podcast I attribute to the success in the last couple of weeks. Just the importance of speaking and having these conversations and, organizing your thoughts. It definitely comes across in an interview that you are a logical thinker, you can communicate well, and ultimately that you're confident enough to have difficult discussions. Be frank about what it is that you're looking for, be frank about what it is that you're not, and, those sort of meaningful types of conversations definitely help. So I would definitely encourage you to speak more, really. Have more conversations with friends. Try, if you're introverted, to have more conversations, because it definitely reaps rewards everywhere in your life. In terms of the third one, I would definitely say picking up on red flags and recognizing when something is not for you. Now, I think a lot of people have a kind of a way where they, want to please everyone, really, and we kind of adapt ourselves, as you said earlier, Barry, in terms of being confined to a prison. Sometimes, you're in a situation and yeah, maybe you're a little bit desperate. You really need a job, and you kind of overlook something that doesn't really sit well with you. But you have to be strong, and you have to ultimately pick up on those red flags, stand your ground, know what's for you, know what's not, and ultimately, don't change yourself for what somebody else wants you to be. So that's definitely helped. I've been able to grow on that. In terms of the fourth one, sort of kind of questions in an interview. Now, a lot of interviews are sort of the old school way of thinking and questionings. How would you react in this certain circumstance? And for me, that's sort of old fashioned. I am not a fan of those types of interviews. And funnily enough, 2 years later, the sort of dialogue and the sort of questions that I've been going on have been dramatically different. So it's kind of changed from tell me about a time where X happened to how do you think you can add to this role? Tell me about your relevant experience. And it's certainly, it's more insightful in that you can actually prepare for that. You can actually look at the role, look at how you can add value, do a bit of that thinking beforehand. And, those types of questions make you feel a lot less put on the spot, a lot less tested, and ultimately, I think, allow you to shine better. So I would definitely say do a bit of thought work there, and try and dodge those sort of sillier questions, I would say. And then, yeah, my last point is the importance of researching the company and having good questions to ask. I think it definitely illustrates interest when you have done the sort of extra mile in terms of making sure you know the ins and outs of what the company does, what your role is, where you would fit in the picture, and ultimately asking good questions, I think is really important because it just illustrates that interest that you have. So those are a couple of things that I've learned. So, if you kind of are looking at going back on the market sometime soon, to just really pick up from some of those things that I've learned in the last 2 years. Pond across the pond.